Hello everyone and welcome back to the round 12 of the Pokemon TCG Regional Championship 2023. I'm Marcus Pataro and I'm here joined by Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. We had an amazing game just then. We were thoroughly enjoying watching that on the sidelines. The Cherim Snorlax deck.
I know, Shy, big fan, and he got to enjoy an interview with his hero. So Shy is an absolute
It reminds me of seeing that Articuno deck over in Stuttgart. I was fangirling over that so much, and we've got a new deck to fangirl over. So that's going to be going on doing well in the top. What is it, like 20
Road
people
decks,
right now?
Yeah,
Road decks in the top 20 right now.
7-3-1 for him right now, 22 points. Still has some road to go through. We're just jumping into round 12. The players are getting set up. It's Alberto Conti on one side, and he's playing very interesting deck, I think. He's playing Turbo Lost Box. It's a deck that aims to go Mirage Gate on turn 2, set up one of his powerful attackers, and yes, it just tries to catch the opponent off guard.
Yeah,
On the other hand, instead, we have, I believe, it's like a Regigigas build. Yeah, I was trying to look if there was anything spicy in here right away. 4 path to the peak, 3 mana, so it's sort of the more disruptive version of the Regigigas build.
Yeah, I think both decks have done well recently. You know, we looked at the meta breakdown for day 2, and there is mostly Lugia V-Star. Then we got a lot of Lost Box, a lot of Regis, some Arceus Duraludon in there. Some Mew as well. So the typical top 4, top 5 decks coming out on top in day 2. But both these decks are ones that I think, when unchecked, can really disrupt a deck like a Lugia V-Star when they have the right counter things.
Exactly, absolutely. The Regigigas build is one of those decks that requires about... So we look at some statistics. 56 cards of the general Regigigas decks are the same throughout every deck. It's because you need the Regigigas line, so that's about, what, 13 Pokemon, something like that. That's 6 Pokemon times 2 for each, plus 1 extra Regideck if you want to play the Electric Sona. So that's going to be 13 Pokemons. Then you got to play 4 Research, and then just the setup cards. Tracking Shoes to get those energies in the discard pile to activate Regigigas' ability, and getting back those energy through Ancient Wisdom. And then, yes, you have all those options to attack, so it's a very cool deck. But I'm very interested to see this version of Lost Box and how it goes. We're about to start here. 1 mulligan to be taken by Sen.
Yeah, and you can see there in the prizes, always a big part of the Regi deck, seeing what's in the prizes. Obviously, if 2 Regis are in the prizes, it can be pretty rough, but there is typically ways to deal with that, having things like Hisuian Heavy Ball. There is 1 count in here to help if that is the case.
Exactly.
But actually having the perfect start there,
Indeed.
that's the right Regi you want in the active spot.
Indeed, that's the Regidrago with the Dragon Horde ability. You're going to draw up to 4 cards once per turn. It's a pretty sweet, quite small if I have to be honest, ability to get cards in your hand. But with Regis, you always want to discard cards. You have that Capture Energy. Yes, there we go. That's the one I mentioned. Getting back, and just the first thing you're going to do when you play Regis, just making sure what Regis are in your prizes. It can get really tough when 2 copies of the same Regis are in the prizes.
And if we look on the other side in those prizes, getting a little bit of a sneak peek at some of the different tools that the Lost Box has in terms of Pokemon that can attack. There is that Kyogre in there with the late game Energy Recycler double knockout that we've seen piloted so far this meta. I think it's a really exciting card, but one that can be quite hard to get out, but very much at the end of the game. But then, as you mentioned, it's quite a turbo build, so there's so many switch outs to allow you to try and get that Mirage Gate onto attackers like the Dragonite V, which is... I think it's a pretty solid attacker, one that a lot of people have overlooked.
Attacker, yes. So it's a 230 HP Dragon type Pokemon.
It's quite bulky, isn't it?
Yeah,
really?
230 by basically no weakness, no resistance already. That's pretty bulky. But it's for second attack, Dragon Gale, 2 water energy in 1 lining, 250 damage, and then you deal 20 damage to each of your bench Pokemon. A bit of a downside there. But what's really interesting about this build, I want to take some moments to discuss it, is that normally Lost Box deck try to generate card advantage throughout the game, try to bury the opponent through different attackers. While instead this sort of version plays, and this is really important, 4 escape ropes, 4 switch cards, 4 scoop up nets, 2 copies of Lost Vacuum, and 2 copies of Pokestop, as well as 2 Forest Seal Stone. So when you see this deck, the first thing that comes to mind is this deck wants to go fast.
Yeah, rapid, very rapid. You know, Greninja as well to start getting draw. You have access to the the Raikou with that
Exactly,
one
Raikou V.
draw. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
one
just
draw for
it's
turn,
like
it's-
all of these things start adding up.
Yeah,
and like
the Lightning Rondo attack 20 damage plus 20 for every bench Pokemon, and that's really good against Lugia. Obviously hits for weakness right there. Many people are not playing Dance Plus anymore in the Lugia build. And I had a chat with Alberto just before, and he was mentioning that he always wants to go second. He always needs to get that Colors Experiment on as soon as possible, because in that way he can get on a turn 1. Because his entire deck is built around the idea of going Mirage Gate, turn 1.
I mean, it's typically, you see in Lost Box, there's 3 numbers that matter, 4, 7, 10. The 4 for the Cramorant, 7 for the Mirage Gate, 10 for the Sableye. But there is no Cramorant in this build, so you cannot get that 4 count be an early tempo. You really have to start getting up to 7, 100% of the time.
Exactly.
And if you get the Mirage Gate off, you can get an early attack off with either the Dragonite or with the Raikou. But
yeah.
Raikou is prized here. Kyogre, not too bad of a prize card, because that can be attained later on through a heavy ball and used in the late game. But we see here, Battle VIP Pass, another part of that turbo you described with all the switch outs.
Exactly. So he also said to me that Raikou is his main attacker. It's a pretty consistent attacker. Also, as you mentioned, the extra of drawing 1 card each turn is a big plus. Interestingly enough, he doesn't run any Cramorants. He runs 2 copies of Sableyes, the 4 classic Comfy that we see in every Lost Box deck, Radiant Greninja to boost that draw, and Aluminium V. Once again, he really wants to use his only supporter that he runs in his deck, which is 4 copies of Colors Experiment. I think this is a really nice twist to the Lost Box deck that we're seeing. The shell is just so versatile, and it's so very nice to witness.
Yeah, you see that notepad, just writing down the prize cards. You are allowed to have a notepad on the stage as long as it's not in code. And you can see just going first through the Pokemon there, we'll have found that Kyogre and Raikou are in the prize cards. Now going to be going through the energy, and that will let him know that all energy are in the deck or his hand, and it will just be working out those last cards. So now going to be going through those trainers, see if there's any important trainers. Probably something like a Colress might be important, but the Quick Balls and Battle VIP Pass, because there's so many of them in the deck, it's not too big a concern to see them in the prize cards, because it just means you've got less outs rather than no outs.
Indeed. So the deck, look at the hand, there's also for a Steel Stone, so he may go for a V Pokemon right now through that Battle VIP Pass. Yes, there it is. I think that's a Dragonite that we're seeing, plus a Comfy.
With Comfey in hand, so the 2 Comfey duo, very nice.
Indeed. And playing 12 switching effects overall means they will be able to going through them up and down, activating those flowers, searching each of them, and getting the number up. He wants to reach the magical number of 7 for the Mirage Gate. Once again, Mirage Gate, you use it only if you have 7 or more cards in your Lost Zone, and then you can search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards and attach to any of your Pokemon in any way you like.
So I'm really intrigued as to how often this doesn't get to the 7 in that first turn, because in theory it's a great idea, but you know, it's still a lot to ask. Getting 7 either through, I guess it's 5 flower selecting, and most likely going to be the 2 Colors Experiment, but also you said the Mirage, the Lost Vacuum, sorry, is another great way to get stuff.
2 copies, which is something you don't see every day. Maybe you see 1 copy, maybe you see 0. I think we see more than 0 than 1. But the real purpose of that Lost Vacuum, also there are a lot of tools in this metagame, a lot of stadiums, so that you will always find a target. And there we go, 2 cards already in the Lost Zone, plus a beautiful Colors Experiment.
Yeah, because you could use the Forest Seal Stone on one of your Pokemon to get the Lost Vacuum to then put the Forest Seal Stone into the Lost Zone. So very clever synergy here. Something we haven't really seen before with the Lost Box. At the moment, the Rayquaza build is the most favored one, right?
Exactly. I think that's the one we witnessed the most of. The Kyogre build sort of fell out of favor. He still runs 1 Kyogre. I don't think it's the main concern of the deck. It's still a pretty good finisher. Kyogre, for those of you that don't know where from Celebrations, it's a free energy attacker. 2 water and 1 colorless. Discard the top 5 cards of your deck and then choose 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Therefore, you cannot decide based on how many energies you discard, because it will do 50 damage for each energy discarded this way.
Interesting. Just looking at the Lost Zone there, we've got a Luminion in there, accepting that they got, like, the Luminion will be to get that early access to Colors Experiment. Once you get going, it's not as important. And then also there's one of the Sableye in there. But 2 Lightning Energy, there's only 3 played in the deck, and both Dragonite and Raikou are Lightning Energy users. There is energy retrieval in this deck, you know, ordinary rods, energy recycler. It's not the end of the world if energy does go into the discard pile, but to only be dealing with one lightning energy now, it's going to be quite tough.
Look at that, Alberto already at 4 cards, about to be 5 in his lost zone. We are very lucky to see the Mirage Gate. As I mentioned before, one more energy. He runs a total of 10 energies, split 5, 3, 2, water, lightning, psychic. And yeah, he only has 1 lightning left before the Dragonite will need it if he wants to attack this turn.
Dragonite's a good attacker in this because there's no weakness, and that's typically what the Regis can play off of on the big Vs, is they can find a way to get weakness damage, which guarees a 1-for-2 trade. But on this occasion, Dragonite will definitely take a hit and be able to get a 2-for-2 trade, and there's also the mana fee in the list there you're just looking at.
Yeah, something very interesting is that the Regigigas list plays 2 copies of the Regieleki with Terraspark. So Terraspark does 120 to discard all lightning, and there's going to be 40 damage to also 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And as I mentioned before, Dragon Gale from Dragonite has a downside. That downside is dealing 20 damage to each of your bench Pokemon. Therefore, Alberto will need to be very careful about his attacks. He will need to scoop up net all his damaged Pokemon if he doesn't want to lose the prize race.
But yeah, we see the first Mirage Gate coming out there. Water from the hand, water and lightning from the deck. Switch cart into the Dragonite. So that tempo coming through here, you mentioned that it's all about trying to get that first turn Mirage Gate off. And if you said that to most Lost Box players, they'd say that's barbaric to try and think you could do that. But on this occasion, very easily done here. Still more options probably from Alberto.
Look,
Forest Seal Stone didn't even get used, so there was so many more options for it. But yeah, the Dragonite going to be attacking there, and the damage spread across all the bench.
Indeed. So Regigigas is a deck that is very resilient. It's a deck that it's pretty slow. Similar to Regigigas in the video game, right? Slow start. It's it takes a bit of turn to set up. So I'm just saying, I'm waving to our VGC colleagues. But Regigigas requires some turns, and then once it's set up, once it's able to loop these Pokemon, once again it needs to run 3 copies of Ordinary Rod to get those Pokemons back. But once it's set up, it's a very solid deck. As I mentioned, a lot of different attackers. But yeah, at the beginning, if it gets knocked out too much, it can get pretty tough.
It's all about that tempo against Regis, isn't it? Exactly. You got to start making it tough as possible early on. Start taking out Regis, maybe even particular Regis if it's one that you notice has already been discarded. Force a tougher route, and equally the energy is sometimes the hardest thing. If you want to attack with a Pokemon that has a unique energy cost, whether it be through special energy or with Regigigas it needs a lot of energy, you need to start thinking about special energy, and right now that is a lacking factor for Sen, not much energy in the discard pile.
Exactly. So just to cycle through the Regis attack, Regieleki is probably the most common one. In fact, deck runs 2 speed lightning energies to just help the Regieleki attack, and it does 120 and 40 to 2 bench Pokemon. As I mentioned before, Regice is a great attacker against V basic Pokemons, because actually any Pokemon B, because if it connects, the defending Pokemon is Pokemon V, it cannot attack during your opponent's turn. I
mean, that's not going to be too much of a problem for Alberto with how many switch outs we've been speaking
about.
Not at all.
12 switching effects. I'm pretty sure he will be fine. Regirock is not a great attacker, neither is Regidrago. And Registeel can come in to help sometimes, but only against very light Pokemons, because it does 220 minus 50 for every retreat cost.
I'm pretty sure in Reggie's time I've seen every single one of them attack at some point. You know,
yeah,
they
absolutely.
They all have their matchups. So
they all put in the work.
Even Regidrago, you know, the ability typically Regidrago's greatest strength, but sometimes just hitting 160 is exactly the number you need. We mentioned about the heat fire energy earlier on a Charizard. This is probably the only point where you'd start saying that's the case, but then Regice is always a better attacker there. So yeah, 160 in some situations might be the magic number you need.
Exactly.
I guess a Snorlax might
be. It could be a chance in which you need to, if you go against Cherim Snorlax, that may be your attacker of choice.
Yeah, that's a matchup we've got to start thinking about now.
Something very interesting as well, here we're just seeing the Alberto powering through. I'm not too sure what his matchup is against this single prize attackers. Against, I don't know if he has played already against Regigigas. Off the top of my head, I would say he's somewhat favored, but it really depends what his main attacker is. I think he would be much, much happier if Raikou was on the active spot, because Raikou doesn't have any any downside to his attack. That's 200 HP, so like 30 HP less compared to the Dragonite V.
Only downside to Raikou is the weakness.
That
the
is
Giga
true.
Impact from the Regirock could then become viable as a 1-for-2.
Absolutely.
But still, like, this is getting quite scary now.
Yeah, exactly.
The 20 damage over and over and over again is going to essentially knock out his whole bench at some point. But I'm sure Alberto will hold himself back from doing that and will recognise when the right time to switch up the strategy is.
Absolutely. Something very interesting to notice as well is that Sableye puts 12 damage counters, right? There are no Regi Pokemons that have less than, 120 or less. They all have 130. I think maybe there's one. No, they all have 130.
It's just this
Regilecky
one Regilecky that has
the only
it.
main attacker is the Regilecky, but you do play one copy of the other Regilecky with 130. Therefore, Sableye can get really pesky at time. It can be a trouble for Regigigas if it gives too many attacks for free. There's only two Psychic energies, however, in Alberto Conti to make it work.
This is tough here for Senka's. Just not quite getting going here. The turbo.
No.
The turbo lost toolboxes seems to be coming through here, and this is a great opportunity now for everyone to see the Dragonite variant, which we'd heard about. We knew was potential to be in this event, but we didn't really get to see it in action yet on stream. And the Mirage Gate turn 1 has come through, and now you're seeing the build up from Regi's and how it starts to work.
On Regigigas, it's attached a gift energy, which is an energy that once the Pokemon gets knocked out, you draw up to have 7 cards in your hand. So another little bit, of consistency, I would say, for the Regigigas that so much struggles in the early turns of the game. Tracking Shoes, after Tracking Shoes, eventually he will find his resources that he needs, possibly. There we go, one more Tracking Shoe.
That's a great
energy in the discard.
right there.
Great. Regigigas always wants with that Ancient Wisdom. Regigigas needs all of his friends before being, before his wisdom really comes to surface.
Yeah, I mean the wisdom right now is seeing all of those special energies in the discard pile, and there's also going to be a twin energy, I think, that will get discarded with a quick ball.
Yep.
So that will allow to search the final missing Regi piece.
So close yet so far. There we go. That's going to be the discard. Regigigas, we may see a Gigaton break this turn. There's already an energy attached, so therefore 3 energies will suffice as long as there's a twin energy.
All the boys are out.
There we go. The Regi Bros are here, and they're here to rumble.
Yeah. So Regi's all on board now. It can now activate Ancient Wisdom. The acceleration is finally here, but the question is it too late? You know, Regi's hadn't taken a prize card yet. There are 4 prize cards remaining for Alberto. So if the tempo continues as expected now, Regi's just won't be able to catch up, and that's the difference in that turbo mindset with the Lost engine and the I'm going to get everything in play for the Regi's engine. So it's a very different style, but both of them very effective here. You know, some of the top 4 decks in Liverpool, and so we'll get to see now how that works. So, there we go. So going down the Regice route to try and stop the Dragonite from attacking.
Yep, I think that's pretty smart. Alberto will at least need to use some of his cards. Once again, it's never a good idea to let Lost Box have so many cards in hand and not make them use them. But I think Alberto is going to hit a wall eventually. That is, the Conference already have 40 damage on it. This means that as soon as the next attack connects, there's going to be 60 damage. And if it attacks once more, he's going to give 3 prizes for free to Sen, which I don't think is that even what he wants.
Also, interesting interaction there. The scoop up net on the Regigigas allowed it to reset the Ancient Wisdom.
Exactly.
So even more energy accelerated into play. Path to the Peak, good to sort of reduce the Greninja's ability to help in this interaction. But the interesting route now would be how long can this Dragonite keep attacking? Is there scoop up nets to try and remove damage from play, and all these other factors that are now on Alberto's side, because it does eventually run out of steam, these kind of decks.
If you notice, Alberto checked first the energy in the discard and then the scoop up nets. He did so because I think what he's thinking right now is, I want to go Sableye, I want to maybe Catcher or Boss one of your... actually, it doesn't run... Oh no, he doesn't run any copies of Boss's Order.
Yeah, Chorus, the Chorus Experiment, the only supporter here. There is the escape rope, so you can have a pseudo gust, but it's not quite the same.
Exactly. So we're just checking if you can somewhat stall Sen, but I don't think that's going to be an option. I think Alberto right now needs to keep trading and eventually get a boost in the prize race.
Well, the final two prize cards for Alberto probably going to be a Kyogre, right?
Yeah.
Look to try and take 2 out.
Exactly. The Kyogre plus Energy Recycler combo is very sweet. So Energy Recycler, you shuffle 5 of your energies into your deck, and you may say, well, that's not very consistent, but you need to remember that Lost Box is able to draw so many cards each turn, and therefore thinning out the deck until maybe there's going to be like 5 cards left, therefore you're pretty much granted to deal basically 150.
Yeah, so it's going to be the most guaranteed top 5 deck of your life.
Yeah. Sometimes you can even have like 1 card left and you just go, well, I'm going to deal 200 damage to your Pokemons. Best of luck.
So escape rope there, the Regieleki being put into the active spot now.
Let's go search for some more flowers, shall we? 1 card more into his hand, 1 Comfy still on the bench that has not used its ability. The Greninja cannot use its ability because it's a Pokemon with a rule box. We're going to see a Scoop Up Net, removing that damage and also using the effect. Perfect maximization of value there by Alberto. Let's see what he wants to go for right now. I think he's peeping so his cards, just checking how many Mirage Gates, just 1 there, none in the Lost Zone.
I want to see how thin this deck starts to get, because the whole idea is you want to get right down to the bottom so that when you Energy Recycler, you can check everything back. And that's why I was checking for the Mirage Gates, because has put 1 of them in the Lost Zone. So that probably means there's going to be 2 remaining in hand/deck.
I think Alberto can already go for the Kyogre play, taking 2. It's not impossible at all for the Lost Box deck to go Kyogre and the turn after Kyogre. They are once again going to have an immense amount of cards in hand, as long as Sen does not have 1 of his 3 copies of Mani. But in that case, they will be able to go Ordinary Road, shuffle back the Kyogre and some energies into the deck, and then just getting it with either a Quick Ball or any other of its just natural draws.
So I can see the route here will be Sableye on the Regieleki, especially right now while there is the 120 Regieleki in play. You can see here how the switch cards can also help with the Dragonite damage. So that's going to bring that Comfey down to 10 hit points taken, so 60 remaining. Now the Sableye is going to be looking to knock out the Regieleki here, which will put the prize that bit closer to a Kyogre range.
I just noticed that both decks do not run any Boss's Order. There are 2 Serenas being run by the Regieleki, so we're playing a fair, everybody on the same playing field, like there's no gust effects.
Harsh on Boss.
Yeah, I mean, gust effects.
Boss is great.
Gust effects shape up the meta game very much. But yeah, there's going to be an Ordinary Road. Just shuffling back those 2 Pokemon that are so necessary for the Regigigas deck to work. Let's see what he wants to connect. I suppose he doesn't even need to get the Regieleki right now, because he already is set up. He already has attackers. The knockout on the Sableye is pretty much granted.
Yeah, I mean, the Regieleki is 1 in the prizes. There's 2 in the discard pile, so it doesn't need the Regieleki right now, but access to it will be a bit tougher. But Mani, what a card in this matchup.
Indeed. Lost Box, just so many cards in hand. He had about 10 right there, and now he's going back down to 4, which he has not flower picked. So it's if there are the cards he needs right now, then he can 100%. Oh, this is great. Oh, this is great for Sen. He just played the Hisuian ball, but he actually decides to go for the Regieleki, which has already 2 copies in the deck, and just leaves the Regirock in there.
Yeah,
he's gonna cut the prize.
I think both the electromagnetic sonar Reggie was discarded earlier on, as well as the one that was just knocked out in play. So getting that one from prizes, as you mentioned, doesn't really need any kind of energy acceleration right now, because 2 attackers fully energied up should be pretty safe now for Sen to start getting some knockouts. And this Mani is huge. The disruption from the Mani, and asking the question of, are you comfortable attacking again with Dragonite? Because I know that your Dragonite is eventually going to knock out that Manaphy, and that's when you start worrying about the range of the electromagnetic sonar Regieleki, which can hit 2 for 40.
Exactly. Something important here to make a point of is that Reggie-Eyes, if the opponent Pokemon is a Pokemon V, then the fact that it cannot attack applies. But since here the Sableye was knocked out, the Dragonite would be free to attack if Alberto decides to do so. Obviously, until the Manaphy stays in the bench, he's pretty much safe from not being blown out of the water.
That was a quick old Colress experiment right there. Just Doesn't need the Forest Seal Stone being used already, and I assume
Exactly.
something like a Battle VIP pass. I didn't quite see what it was, but an Energy Recycler was taken with that Chorus Experiment. A little bit early for it. Needs to find the Hisuian Heavy Ball to get the Kyogre out in the first place, but we need one more prize taken before we start thinking about the Kyogre finish.
And just look at that. He had 4 cards at the beginning of turn, drawing 1 card, and now he has about 9 with 1 activation and 1 Chorus Experiment. Chorus Experiment, when you first look at it, it may not look such a great card, like drawing 3 is not that great, but the reality is, you look at 5 cards, you choose 3 of them, and 2 of the ones that you don't want to see anyways, because maybe in the matchup they're not correct, or they're just superfluous, go into the Lost Zone, which then power up your Lost Zone card. It's just, there's so much difference between a normal, I don't know, Charin, draw 3, and a Chorus Experiment.
What I really like about the way Alberto searches for things like he just did in the discard pile is he very clearly finds the thing he wants and shows us. He just looked into the discard pile, found the Marnie, put it to the top, and now we know he's scared of Marnie because that Marnie in the discard pile was the one he popped up. Ooh,
Pokestop. That's Pokestop.
We get to see how thin his deck is. There's like 5 cards remaining.
3 hits from the Pokestop. I'm pretty sure when your deck is basically entirely trainers at this point, it's really no bother. And yeah, it may get scary here for Alberto to have so few cards in his deck, but once again, he has 2 copies of Ordinary Road and 1 copy of Energy Recycler, so he can pump up his deck as soon as he needs.
So he's going to hold on to that Energy Recycler as long as possible. We'll get that 1 more knockout. Gift Energy activated for one card there, but 20 damage across the board. The Manaphy now is on 10 hit
60,
points remaining, so we are waiting now to see whether the Kyogre strategy can be pulled off next turn.
Yeah, Alberto is doing okay, I think. Obviously, all the damage may be scary at face value, but I think he still has 2 scoop up nets and 2 switch cards. Switch cards also has the bonus that you can only switch your basic Pokemons, but once you do so, you will heal 30 damage off them.
I mean, right now, there's 5 cards remaining in the deck, so there's a Chorus Experiment in hand, so the only way right now to disrupt the Kyogre strategy, which I believe all the pieces are there, would be to get a Marnie off and hope that it doesn't lead to something. But realistically, with all of the flower selecting available with all those Comfeys, it should be possible now for Alberto to guarantee a Kyogre 2 hit for 250 damage. Probably doesn't even need 250 damage, only needs 150 max. So yeah, in a really good spot here to get that finishing blow for 2 prizes. Just needs to find the Hisuian Heavy Ball, Energy Recycler, and get the Kyogre into the active.
Absolutely. So once again, Regigigas is a deck that can be defined as static. This means that it's a deck that once it's set up, it will try to do the same thing every turn. Its game plan will not vary that much. It will just try to attack every turn, dealing damage, racking up damage over and over and over again, and then have some small pieces of disruption. Right now, we can see Alberto is desperately trying to draw that Kyogre from the prizes, because that's going to be his way to even up, or already to take 2 prizes in one go. But at the same time, Sen has still 5 prizes. There's a lot of damage throughout Alberto's board, but we're going to see where he goes, because Sen also is missing some of his Regibros from his bench. Ooh, very interesting play. I like this. I very much like this.
Okay, so he's scooped up all the options, so the Kyogre could only attack the bench. So if that Kyogre play does get played off, then there is not 2 targets to hit. So Sen very much aware of the Kyogre and playing around it.
Very well played here by Sen. Obviously, he doesn't know that the Kyogre is prized, and if Alberto keeps drawing his prize like it is, it's going to be the last prize.
He's got a Hisuian Heavy Ball though, right?
Yeah,
so
he does.
He'll find it.
He does have a Heavy Ball. Here,
it could be in that hand. It could be in the deck.
Yeah, it's pretty funny when the hand is bigger than the deck. I think there's 4 cards left now at this point. So look for his discard very quickly. Oh, come on, Alberto, you could have showed us some more information.
The problem is now is the original plan that he had in his head is not viable, so he's going to have to find a different route here. Raikou is no longer going to take a knockout on the Regigigas, as mentioned. There's no Gus, so it would have to be an escape rope Raikou attack. And so the options have changed. Now Alberto now is just trying to think through those options and see what they want to do.
One Sableye gone in the Lost Zone, 1 Sableye in the discard pile. So if he wants to commit to the Sableye, he will need to play on an Ordinary Road, get back that, and unfortunately the Sableye will not do enough to take the knockout on the either Regidrago or Regigigas. Regigigas also has a Cape of Toughness, which definitely does not help here.
So you see the Ordinary Rod there and the Hisuian Heavy Ball. The problem right now is Alberto doesn't want to use the energy recycler to get energy back for the Raikou. Wants to save it for the Kyogre just in case.
Exactly.
But on this occasion, it's probably going to have to attack 2 turns in a row with Raikou. But that Regigigas is going to cause problems as it cannot be knocked out in one by the Raikou. So an interesting finish here. Very different route to what we were seeing, but very well played by Sen to slowly take away Regis on the bench to prepare for this.
Sen had a turn in which you could have either tried to set up again all his Regibros in the bench, or he could have just let it go. There's already 2 Regis that are attacking constantly. Therefore, right now, Sen is expecting to not be knocked out this turn, and I'm not sure if he knows what all of Alberto's attackers are at this point, but he for sure knows that the Kyogre is an option. So he's going to just go for the ordinary road, putting back both the Dragonite V and the Sableye, and I was going to go for the Mirage Gate. So once again, Lightning Rondo, 20 damage plus 20 damage for each bench Pokemon. At the moment, that's going to deal 140.
Okay, so that will get the Regidrago, and then I think the 2 Pokemon put back there, the Dragonite and the Sableye, both options to take out the Regigigas afterwards. So now Kyogre completely useless in this situation, so it's going to be ignored by Alberto. And so an interesting set of plays here, because there's so much Sen could do as well. We've got the Cape of Toughness there. If there's a loss of vacuum, that could take away the Cape of Toughness and put it within range of other things. So lots to think about.
Sen has a pretty healthy hand. He has some options there. I saw already. This is going to be the Escape Rope, which is the switching effect for Alberto. And yeah, Lightning Rondo is gonna. He cannot draw a card, unfortunately, with because the buff to the peak is in play. But I think that matters when you have 5 cards in your deck.
Yeah, there is a Chorus Experiment in hand, but probably won't want to play it now because then it can deck out. So,
indeed.
Yeah, here. Regidrago. That's going to be, as you mentioned, for every bench Pokemon. 6 times 20, 120 plus 20, 140.
Well done, buddy.
Oh, reminds me of the old Suicune days. What a throwback.
140 damage. That's going to be way enough. Oh, yeah, it's also like Suicune, Raikou, Entei, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a throwback.
It's nice to see Raikou come through.
Yeah,
I think for a while everyone was like, oh, Suicune's going to be the only one of the legendary beasts that's
I think both players here are showing their prowess in the game right now. They are able to play up to the resources that they're given. Now he finally drew the Kyogre, but I don't know if Sen at this point has sussed out that maybe the Kyogre wasn't there, or like, I mean, he definitely knows that Kyogre is in that deck. So now he has a decision. Either I just go throughout, through the same path that I'm walking right now, or just Regigigas 150 every turn and see where the where the wind blows me, or he just decides to try set up. But I think that's exactly the route he wants to go. He just asks his opponent, "What do you have for me? You just have 4 cards left in your deck. Maybe I even deck you out. Who knows?"
Yeah, he's just going to attack for 120 here. So 5 times 20 plus 20 is 120.
Well done, buddy.
Thank you very much.
Still on top of your stuff. Well done. That's going to be a trekking shoe once more. I think. What do you think he's looking for here?
I can't see a way that the Regis wins here, because I guess just hoping that next turn the Sableye or the Dragonite isn't possible to power up. But yeah, there isn't really a way to get the prize race back in favor. There is 3 prizes remaining for the Regi deck. Needs to take it across 2 turns, whereas next turn Alberto has many ways to take the final knockout. So at this stage, it looks like it's Alberto's game.
So once the Raikou gets knocked out, the Regi will just have 80 HP left because of the Cape of Toughness. Therefore, it will need to just need something with 80 damage. The Dragonite will do.
Sableye.
Yeah, he needs to be careful though, because if Dragonite attacks, the Manaphy gets knocked out if he doesn't have either a switching card or the scoop up net. So
yeah, and interestingly, I know there's the energy recycler in there as well, but the psychic energy was used on the Raikou when it was taken back with the ordinary rod, so we'll need to find a way to get that back into the deck.
I'm pretty sure he has the energy recycler. He will dig a bit and get the cards.
So I guess Sen is playing to the out that Alberto has not managed his resources correctly, and so that there is no follow-up attack. So
that's. I mean, Pokemon is an extremely complicated game. Sometimes you mess up, and that's just part of the game. Sometimes you forget about some effects. Sometimes you forget about Path to the Peak. Sometimes you collapse Stadium with Lugia.
Well, sometimes, if you're Alex Dow, you attack into Wash Energy.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes. Oh, look at that! He just puts them into the bench. He presents them. Hello, here are my boys.
Here they come.
Ordinary road. Putting back the 2 missing pieces, and I think at this point, Sen is just thinking maybe I need to. you know, find something else to do. Retreat into a Pokemon that does not get knocked out that easily. But once again, Sableye has a long reach, and it will reach into the bench.
Maybe playing for, I don't know, like a electromagnetic radar Regieleki to try and spread damage, but the Manaphy's still there, so the targeted bolt is not really possible.
Will not work. It will not work. There's going to be Serena discarding those 2 cards.
Maybe got a scoop up net for the Regigigas to take away that damage, and then everything's got 130 HP or more, so Sableye then can't take a knockout?
Yep, that may be his out. I believe there's already been 3 scoop up nets being used. So that's a Regice and 2 Regice and 3 supporters drawn by Sen. I don't think that's what he wants. He's shaking his hand. I think he said, yes, sure, let's go to game 2. Very good
outs,
game
though.
1.
Playing to the outs,
absolutely.
And that's very impressive there. That route I hadn't even thought about of just removing that damage.
And look at that, he's even playing it through. This is the correct, once again, the correct idea, because you need to make sure that you need to tell your opponent, okay, show me the cards, show me that it's good. Call this experiment. It looks like top 5, but you have less cards than 5. You only get to, you know, just basically draw 3. Something interesting is you can also, of course, experiment with 1 card, and you will just keep that card.
Okay, so the Ordinary Rod or the Energy Recycler can put the Psychic Energy back in, and then through the Flower Selecting can get that, and then as long as there is a way to switch.
Sableye, gonna draw 1 card, buddy.
I was gonna go for the Mirage Gate, and then has the Scoop Up Net, and there we go. But yeah, there was a few ways at the end there. Sen could have done the Scoop Up Net, could have done and kept just 130 hit point Pokemon in play. That would have forced the Dragonite route. So yeah, some interesting end game scenarios there. You know, removing the Kyogre option, very clever, and then the idea of using the Raikou for 2 attacks. Everything there was very smartly played by both players. They knew what they were up against. Exactly. They played around it, and a very intricate ending to the game there.
Indeed, Sen played really well in the turn in which he picked up all of his Pokemon, just leaving 2 of the Pokemon that were both out of the range of Sableye. But then again, also Alberto played really well. Knew what his opponent was doing. The Kyogre was still in the prizes. But game 2, I'm very curious to see once the Kyogre will not be in the prizes. Hopefully, we'll see. How will the game change?
Well, the Kyogre has to be used at the end because you need to synergize it with the Energy Recycler on a pretty much empty deck. So again, if the Regi deck plays the resources well and plans around that for the end, then it will take away that option. And I'm sure that's in the back of the mind is in this matchup, they really need to be trading 1 for 1 or, you know, like we said, the Regi Rock could take out the Raikou 1 for 2. So you're just trying to skip ahead in the prize race. And the Kyogre is a great way for the Lost Box here to get 2 prizes for 1 attack.
I'm very happy we got to see this matchup. I think it's a very interesting matchup in which we have a single prize Pokemon deck. And on the other hand, it's a deck that really goes in right away, puts in the pressure. And we're going into game 2. Ooh, Luminion start. Not too terrible, I'm going to be honest, because you can go 120, tank a hit, and then shuffle back into the deck.
Especially with that Regieleki being the starter on the other side.
But that is bad.
It's the only one that's in range. So there is some intricacy here of the both attackers want to get their attack off first. The Luminion could knock out that Regieleki and get itself out of play. But not before you get that Mirage Gate online. So the Mirage Gate being the key factor for Alberto, really needs to get that as soon as possible early on. Other than that, prizes, you know, there is a Regigigas in the prizes for Sen. Sometimes a card that people play 3 of because it's so important to get out on the early turns, and people like to lost zone it and get rid of it as soon as possible.
Exactly.
But yeah, we can see now the prizes aren't too bad. I'd say probably the Dragonite is the biggest scary factor, but both players playing Hisuian Heavy Ball, so any basics in the prizes not too bad.
Start here. I think his hand also contains a Professor Research for the following turn. Talking about Sen.
Oh, that's
and he
not
also
a good hand.
path to the pick at the beginning. Ooh.
Alberto.
Also very interesting. Sen decided to go first rather than letting Alberto go first, which is arguably the better play because Alberto wants to start attacking as soon as possible, wants to use that chorus experiment and top it up turn after turn.
Yeah, looking at that starting hand, it is going to be a bit tricky here for Alberto to get that Mirage Gate online first turn. There's a lot of energy in that first hand. No Battle VIP pass, but you never know. Once that first Flower Selecting comes out, what's going to bounce out of those 2 choices. But having to have the Luminion in the active spot, use up a switch out just to start the Flower Selecting process, not ideal here for Alberto.
Yeah, what's nice about this matchup is also the Dragonite V is bent, so we see a completely different approach that needs to be taken here by Alberto. As you mentioned, his hand not great. And
Soon
does
heavy
have
ball in the hand.
Yeah, he's
so
on heavy ball.
Dragonite's
That's why he
available.
was checking his Pokemon, just seeing maybe I have an out there, but it's a Dragonite V. Maybe you want to attack it with it already, but with a hand, I don't know if you're going too far, my friend.
And you've also got to bear in mind this is a tough old match to go to game 3 in, because it's a single prize match. You saw the intricacy of the last game.
Indeed.
There is some slower turns, and so because of that, we do see that there's not much time left on the round, and so there is every chance that this only gets 1 game, maybe 2 games out for these players.
Exactly. So right now, Alberto having a look through his prizes, taking notes. He's going to probably grab the Dragonite V, always useful to have it. He's going to show it. Yep, he's going to have it ball gets instead in the prizes. And now, I don't know where Alberto goes from here. He can read Luminion, activate the flower searching, and hopefully getting something to get out of this situation.
Yeah, that first game being so close, going right down to the distance. A lot of time taken up by game 1, but we now see the flower selectings begin. And it's an energy or an energy. So just going to have to decide which energy is better to keep, but really not what they need at this point. Alberto really wants to be finding more ways to get stuff in the lost zone. You can see that hand is very much dead.
Terrifying.
And just going to put the Dragonite down, manual attachment, and pass.
Ooh, this is really not good for Alberto. He really needs that tempo. His entire deck is built to go in right away. Oh, he topped like another Professor Research for send. Maybe Alberto wanted some of that sweet supporter. And he's going to see 7 fresh cards. Let's see if the Reggie bros are united in this turn. This is going to be really tough. Oh, already 2 pieces there, I see.
Yeah, this game very much juxtaposes the first one. The fact that the Lost Box popped off and got the Mirage Gate so easily in game 1. We now see the opposite end of the spectrum, which is 1 in the Lost Zone and a hand full of cards you don't want to be seeing. So Alberto's deck is somewhat risky with the strategy. We mentioned Cramorant, typically that middle ground between Mirage Gate and no first turn options, but no Cramorant here, has to get 7 in the Lost Zone, otherwise the deck does not activate.
Well, I'm going to be honest, Send hand at the beginning looked great, but there's an Ordinary Road, a Path to the Peak, a Regieleki and a Regidrago. He cannot bench any of those 2, because that would mean there would be no space for the Regigigas. And he's just going to do, like, I think 20 damage. Yeah, Static Shock.
Which is a shame, because that's one of the few Regis that doesn't have the Regigate attack, which would
I
allow him to get the final piece out. But that does give 1 more turn here for Alberto.
Ooh,
and another flower selecting. It is an escape rope or an energy, so it's not ideal.
I mean, we saw it game 1, right, when he had 2 lining energies, but thanks to the Ordinary Road and the Energy Recycler, he basically always have access to the energy he needs. Both Dragonite V and Raikou V required the lining energy to attack. But
this flower selecting, the next one, if we can get off this escape rope into the next flower selecting, can get a Chorus Experiment, we might start seeing this deck activate. But at this stage,
Sen is at
very
a
much
dead
reaching
end as well, to be fair. His end is stuck. There's a Ordinary Road, a Path to the Peak, and 2 Pokemon that he cannot bench. So he needs to top deck something as well. We may see a slower game plan here by both players, ladies and gentlemen.
Also, part of the peak in play, Greninja's not going to be a useful asset here. There's loads of energy in hand. So with all that energy in hand, searching for a Greninja rather than a Comfey in that situation might have been a better option. But Path might be relevant here. Escape Rope.
There's the escape rope, promoting the Dragon Horde Regidrago, and now Alberto needs to surprise us. What do you have there? Take a look. I was very careful about his one.
Ooh, committing to no Kyogre. What was the other card? Well, it was a Chorus Experiment.
Yeah, sometimes life gives you those choices, and you gotta take the one that will bring you forth. Obviously, given a completely away idea of going Kyogre. Oh my God, that's not good. I think that's what, 3 switching effects.
There was a Lost Vacuum in there.
Lost Vacuum, yeah.
So that could get rid of the Path or the opponent's item, but that wouldn't then go into Alberto's Lost Zone, so it wouldn't get it up to that big 7.
He would still lost a card from his hand, so bringing him closer to that 7, because he does have a Mirage Gate. That's going to be 5. He already used both of the Comfy, so he can get up to 6 if he doesn't have anything else in his hand.
Manual attach.
Manual attachment.
Only 1 lightning left in the deck, so
just says go. Unfortunately, this turn he cannot walk the distance. Ooh, Sen as well. Not great. He can, however, now discard a card. The Ordinary Road cannot be played, because if you play a card in the Pokemon game and it doesn't change the board state or the discard pile or whatever else, you cannot play it, even if it says up to.
Now he can play it if he discards one of the Pokemon.
If he discards one of the Pokemon, he can do it.
There we
and
go.
I think that's what he's going to do. Discarding the Regieleki and then Ordinary Rod.
Perfect.
He's going to shuffle them back in, and those 2 cards better be good.
So Alberto was sat there crossing his fingers saying, please, Reggie deck, do what you do whenever I try and play this deck and make it really tough, because, you know, Reggie's is one of those decks you've got to love it. You really got to love it to keep playing it, because every one in a few games, maybe 1 in 10, you'll start to brick and hate the deck for a bit because it just feels so inconsistent. But Dragon Horde definitely helps.
Research and Scoop Up Net, perfect here for Sen. Definitely will boost him up in the game. I think both players are slowly and steadily crawling up, trying to get to a point where they can both play the game.
I like this. Scoop Up Net to reactivate Dragon's Horde potentially. And so
getting 1 more energy in the discard. And now, yep, there we go. This is going to hit pretty hard. 120 damage if it connects, plus 40 and 40. That's going to be already putting that Comfy on 60 damage because it already has 20 from that Static Shock. We were laughing about the Static Shock early on, but instead that's not going to be the case. Instead it may become important.
So there's the Regigigas coming down. It's going to be Regieleki sitting there, ready to Terra Spark, start spreading out that damage. What a card this will be in this matchup when no mana fee is down.
Exactly. He did not get the chance. Well, he did not get the chance to do much. Poor Alberto this game. Definitely game 1. He showcased the power of this build. I think it was ideated by him and his friends. But right now, there are 7 minutes left on the clock. Therefore, Alberto, if he wants to get the win here, he may even consider, if he decides that this game is a lost cause, to go into game 2. Obviously against Reggie's, as I mentioned. And I expect him, by the way, to go into game 3, sorry, that he will go second. Let's see if this is going to be the case. Alberto would try to play it out.
Okay, so that Comfey with just 10 hit points remaining. The Luminion is scary now as well, with the Regieleki being able to take out the Luminion, plus get damage onto the bench, which in this case would knock out the Comfey. So lots of options available. No way to gust up the Luminion. But it's still a scary prospect to be in play. The Dragonite actually took the 40 damage, it seems, on that last turn rather than the Comfey.
Oh, it's 2 Pokemon.
Oh, it's 2 Pokemon, so got both of them. Dragonite and the Comfey there.
All
so
right, 6 cards in the Lost Zone. Let's see what... he does have the Lost Vacuum, I believe. Oh, no, actually, he put it into the Lost Zone before. So he does not have the Lost Vacuum unless I can...
Yeah, Lost Vacuum's in the Lost Zone there. Water, 2 Lightning in the Lost Zone.
2 switch cards in hand, Ordinary Road, 2 Ordinary Roads even, Mirage Gate and Water Energy. I'm pretty sure Alberto is not going nowhere this game. Let's see what he wants, how he wants to proceed. Energy onto the Luminion. What are you doing, my friend?
It's not looking good.
I was going to say...
Just passing. So that Lost Vacuum could have been key this turn just to get that 1 more card. It would have got rid of the path, so Greninja could have been activated in the future too. So
indeed.
In hindsight, maybe that Lost Vacuum was the key, but it's easy to say that you haven't seen the flower selectings of the future turns. But right now,
this is a
not
very
good
tough
for Alberto.
situation. Like you could easily turn the game around. If you were in Alberto's shoes, and obviously this is completely different. There's no correct answer. No. Would you scoop this game and go into game 3?
Oh, there we go. There's the Serena. Of course, Serena. Well, there is Gust. We forgot.
Yeah, that's the only Gust effect.
The only Gust is on V's. So
indeed. So the mana feed will always be protected, basically, unless it magically appears into the active spot, and that's 2 prizes left already.
Oh, it's a tough question now because there is 2 prizes left. So even if you go to turn to time where there's 3 turns, so most likely going to be for Reggie.
Yeah, there's 5 minutes left. Yeah, it's going to.
There we go.
Scoop. Let's go to game 3. 5 minutes left on the round. Let's say players take about 2 minutes, 3 minutes maybe to set up. That's going to leave them 2 minutes to play. The deck that Alberto pilots has definitely all the right cards to go, I'm going to win in 2 minutes. But Pokemon takes some time. You got to shuffle, you got to get your prices out. You will play Quick Ball. You will then play Battle VIP Pass, check what you have in the prizes. Therefore, Alberto needs to be really quick if he wants to get the twin in the bag.
Alberto is going to be crossing his fingers and hoping that the Reggie deck can't find more than 1 basic at this point. I think that's the only route to victory, but it is the only
They play 13 basics.
Yeah, I mean, just in that position, this is so key about time management. So people who come to these tournaments who do well, very good at recognizing when to scoop. And on this occasion, I think playing out that game was the right thing. Just the flower selectings didn't go their way. But if you scoop and go into the final game, there is a small chance that your opponent has one of those horror games where they just get nothing out.
Exactly.
So that's what they're going to be playing for.
Have a great game. I'm expecting him once again to go second. Let's see if he will stay true to what he said to me before this game. But once again, the Reggie Gigas deck is a very stubborn one. A lot of basics, a lot of ability to find them. Therefore, we will soon. Players, I think, are just getting set up for game 3. Yes, there we go.
So 2 Ultra Ball, 4
there
quick
we go.
ball, the trekking shoes,
here. Ooh,
heavy
start
ball.
Here. And as I mentioned, Alberto going second. Not something you see every day, but it's actually really important. Not only you give your opponent not possibility to play a supporter, but I think Sen has all the answers here. 2 tracking shoes, already a basic in its hand, and the lightning energy. Oh my! I was just about to say, if it draws a lightning Pokemon, the lightning energy will be great.
Yeah, so trekking shoes, great synergy with the Reggie deck, being able to discard any energies you flip over as that first card. But if it's something you want, you can always keep it. So great synergy there, and just deciding whether you want to keep this card. As we can see, there's Speed Lightning. Will have great synergy with the Lightning Pokemon found early on.
Also,
so good start for
Reggie.
Reggie's.
To the peak. So, he decides to go for the quick ball instead. Draws the choice, but I don't think that would have very much likes that. But he's gonna draw 2 more cards, attaching the Speed Energy. When attached to a Lightning Pokemon, which draws you 2 cards. Not great draws yet. Another Path, another Choice Belt. No supporter, but another Speed Lightning for next turn. There we go.
Good idea for the Path. We're seeing a Greninja start. Always a good idea. Looking at the prizes,
3 choices in his hand. Nothing
too scary. The Kyogre package, all in the prizes there for Alberto, but we're not going to be getting to the end of this game here, so nothing too much to worry about there. But 3 choice belts, jeez.
Yeah, this was really Kyogre's game to shine, but he never really got the chance. However, look at that. There's going to be his own heavy ball, but Kyogre is not as good in the early game as it is in the late game, as you mentioned.
Might take the risk.
2 minutes.
It needs that early attack off, so maybe we'll go for the Kyogre route and just be like, right, let's hope there's 3 of these energies in my top 5 cards.
Absolutely. Yeah, Alberto just picking up that Kyogre. It's going to be, great VIP pass turn 1. Always love to see it. And now Alberto really needs to pick up the pace. Gotta find a way to get some cards into his hand. Maybe get a chorus experiment into play, and then activate a Mirage Gate turn 1.
Yeah, we're going to see them try and race for the game here. Once turns are called, they might be able to recognise that it's not going to matter. But at this point, the only way for the Lost Box deck to win is to try and get these 3 Reggies with no more Reggies coming into play, I feel.
Indeed. Look at the pace that has changed for Alberto, much quicker in his move. 2 Watt energies in his hand, nothing he is too happy to see. But now Sen as well has a pretty dead hand. 3 choice belts, the Speed Energy is only out, plus the card that he draws, and 1 more Path to the Peak. So now Alberto 1 more flower selecting. Let's go and see what he puts. Nothing much in the hand. 3 Pokemons, 2 energies. Alberto's taking a bit of time, he's shaking his head. I don't know if he has Battle VIP Pass into his hand. I don't think this is very good for him. Yeah,
okay, so he plays Battle VIP Pass. Get as many of these Comfey down as possible.
Manaphy as well, just in case. But yeah, I am not sure, considering Alberto's hand right now, he can attach and retreat if he gets the nuts out of the Color's experiment. If he draws it through that flower selecting, then there will be an out for him. But I think it just says go.
Interesting, yeah. I mean, as you mentioned, there's so much needed there to even get the first turn attack off. So
45 seconds left on the round. 2 cards being drawn right now through the Speed Energy. Okay, well, none of these players are going anywhere, I think.
It makes you realise, though, that first game where we saw the turbo come out for the Lost Box, maybe that is the rarity. Maybe getting it on the second turn happens more often than not, and actually if you high roll getting it first turn, that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. His entire deck, as I mentioned, 12 switching effects, only the 4 colors being played obviously has its downside, sort of affects your stability of the deck. But look at Sen's hand. Sometimes this is when you play Regigigas, you're given these hands and you're not sure what to do. He, luckily for him, has the electromagnetic sonar Regi Eleki, which lets you grab an item from the discard pile and put it back into your hand.
Yeah, better than passing.
Or trainer even.
Yeah, better than passing.
Better than passing. Better than passing.
And it's useful in, we sometimes see it in control
Time
decks.
is called right now. The 2 players are just thinking. I think this is going to be turn 1. Yeah, we're just going to have a little dice to count the turns, 3 turns, and then we're all going home. Actually, that's not true. There's going to be 2 more rounds and then top 8 to follow 4th.
Okay, so just going to see whether the players think there's any way of this ending here. I feel like from my point of view, now.
Yeah,
I think that's it, right?
It's the we're not going anywhere kind of look.
But I think both players played valiantly, and I think we could see either of those guys going through into the top 8 if they get that run where they don't come up across a similar style deck to them.
Indeed.
I think both those decks are designed to uptrade really well into V-Star, V-Max decks. So unfortunate matchup for them where it is hard to get a result out of it, but both players are incredible players, you could tell.
The Regigigas deck is sort of slower at the beginning. Obviously, this turbo version of the Lost Box really tries its best to get as damage and getting knockouts as early as possible. Playing Raikou as well, great against Lugia, great against any water-based Pokemon. But at the same time, sometimes you're not able to do it. And we saw in Game 2 and Game 3 when Alberto had a much slower start and never really got there. Yeah,
but I think interesting build, the Dragonite being an amazing attacker. 250 damage is a lot of damage, especially with how easily it can be set up once you get the Mirage Gates online. So something to look into, and Reggie just does what Reggie does, you know. As you mentioned, it can be slow to start, but once it's going, it does what it needs to do every single turn and is so consistent at it.
I think Regigigas was a very fair deck coming into this tournament. Lots of copies of Lost City being played in various decks. That really fair. You know, once you remove one of the Regis and you start focusing as well that same, the Regigigas build sort of falls apart. You need to have all of the 6 Regis out on the field to activate that Instant Wisdom. Therefore, yeah, I think people tagged against the Regigigas while instead Alberto went for a completely different approach. He's going, I'm going all in. If you have a way to resist my attacks, good for you. Otherwise, I'm going to win this game. And in fact, it's going to be now the score of 7-2-3. Off the top of my head, I think if he wins the next 2, he may have a chance to bubble top 8.
Yeah, there's always the case. That's, as you mentioned, we are in round 3 of day 2. So we had 9 rounds yesterday. We are looking at the day 2 players today in the final 5 rounds of Swiss, where they want to be trying to get around that 33-point mark.
Exactly.
3 points for a win, 1 for a draw. So both of them will be getting 1 point out of that game. We've been looking across the hall. There's so much variety in the decks. There's a lot of Lugia V-Star, though. I think it was about 38% of today's meta.
38% was Lugia V-Star, was quickly followed by the Lost Box decks and Mew. But what we were very happy to see were a lot of Rogue decks. We saw before we featured the Charin deck, Shai's favorite. Then we saw earlier, yesterday, we saw the control decks piloted by Sander, the binder drop defined by himself, such as that.
The flying Pikachu looking so deadly against
He had a binder at home, he dropped it, some cards came out and was like, whoa, that's a deck.
And there's an Arceus binder drop as well.
Yeah, there's an Arceus binder drop as well. That was really cool. I hope we get to feature him. There is a Vikavolt as well that we're going to try. Yeah, Vikavolt Aerodactyl I saw doing pretty well. Stefan Ivanov was, I think, 9-0-1 piloting that Gudra build. And I think there's another fellow Gudra player that made day 2. I'm not too sure how he's doing right now.
Well, round 4 will be ready fairly soon. That game did go the distance, so we'll be looking to send you into round 4 ASAP, where you'll have Shay and Freya taking you through those games. But for a moment, we're going to take a little break, and we'll be back just after this.